The corridors are peaceful now, empty of the stampeding herds, the hurrying straggler, the intellectual discourse between pupils as they walk quietly between classes. The classrooms themselves are now unnervingly deserted, chapels of learning without their congregation. And what of the noble teacher, you ask? Under a welter of administrative paperwork? Up to the cardigans in coursework? Well, they will be once they finish practicing their stand-up comedy routines. At the time of recording, all these people were qualified teachers, but no child's learning was affected by their behaviour. Now, in the teaching life, there are some who just can't help being a bit of a character.
English is my name, Mr. English. English is my name and language is my game. A guy goes into a pizza parlour. It's a Buddhist pizza parlour. He looks on the board and it says Nirvana Margarita, £5. So he says to the Buddhist cashier, "Excuse me, mate, I'd like a Nirvana Margarita." So he gives the guy £10. He waits for about 5 minutes and his pizza comes out. And he's waiting there and he's waiting there and eventually he says, "Excuse me, mate," to the Buddhist cashier, "I gave you £10 and the Nirvana Margarita's £5. He said, "Where's my money?" And the Buddhist cashier looked at him and said, "Change comes from within."
Now, the reason I want to get into comedy in the first place, I just can't stand getting up for work on a Monday morning. Every Monday morning I have what I call a Gollum Schmeagol moment. You know, a little guy out Lord of the Rings? I'd be sitting there, my alarm clock going and I'd hear this voice. Schmeagol, oh Schmeagol. What? You should stay in bed today. No, my boss needs me. Master needs me. Oh, listen to you. One weekend on a company team-building exercise, and you're aiming for middle management. There's no I in team. Master needs me. No, he doesn't. He thinks you're a...
Good evening. My name is Sir George Howler, and I wish to give you all an interim report on the government's inquiry into schoolboy errors, or, as it is more commonly known, the Howler Report. We have identified 5 main types of howler, and I wish now to share our preliminary findings with you. The first broad category of errors we have called the dyslexic fallacy. Mistakes under this category arise when words are misspelt. So, goods are not stored in a whorehouse, nor is the head of the Catholic Church the pipe. Troops in the First World War were not demolarised, nor were soldiers in the Second World War denobbed or given denob suits. They most certainly were not denob happy. The Church of England is not full of prostitutes at prayer, Faustus did not sell his soul to Santa, and If was not written by Rhubarb Kipling. Spinach is not the language of Spain, and turnips most certainly are not the principal root crop of East Anglia.
Now I'd like to do a few impressions for you, if I may. I'm not actually very good at impressions. All I can do is Orson Welles. So here's my impression of Orson Welles' impression of Jimmy Savile.
Now then, guys and girls, jewelry.
Thank you. I told you it wasn't very good.
Probably the worst Orson Welles impression in the world.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we haven't got time for my Stephen Hawking extravaganza, Man of a Thousand Voices.
Over the decades, many teachers have succeeded by unleashing the unbelievable power of music.
All together now. Little Albanian folk song there from Stockholm, because I love South American music.
Mind you, it always helps if you can both speak and understand the language.
It's strange what people say. They seem to come up with the most oddest things. Now, my father-in-law he's a top bloke and all that, but he says the most oddest things to me that you can ever imagine. One of the favourite ones he says is, "Can I tell you something?" Now, I'm too polite to say no. I actually listen to the things that he's going to say. But his absolute favourite one is when he says to me, "Do you know who I saw the other day?" And I say, "Hang on a minute." I actually do this because it irritates him so much. I get a pad and a piece of paper and I write down who I think he will have seen during the day. Then after a few moments I'll say, "Now you got me there, Dad. You're going to have to tell me."
We also found that many howlers arise from misunderstanding of foreign languages. So, Il fait beau does not mean he comes from the East End. Il ya is not what posh people say when they're unwell, and un, deux, trois, quatre, cinq does not mean 1, 2, 3 cats sank. Hochdeutsch is not German wine. Ursprung durch Technik is nothing to do with Dirk Bogart's sexual technique, and there is no such thing as a Munich depressive. It is possible to be young and easily frightened, but if you are, you should see the school counsellor. Ciao is not the noise made by Italian cats. Cappuccino did not star in The Godfather, and arrivederci is not on a free transfer from Chelsea. Real Madrid is not the opposite of Unreal Madrid. There isn't only one Carlos, and siesta is not a large body of water named after Esther Ranson.
Kids at school say the most strange things as well. They just reel them out. Sometimes there's been a fight and you're trying to sort it out. And the kids will say, I'm going to bang him out. I'm going to bang him out. Why? Has the kid that they've been fighting with got a dent in them? And of course, another favourite is when they say, sir, tell him what? Or sometimes they'll say things like, I'm going to bring my dad up. If I've annoyed him, I'm going to bring my dad up. To which I say, well, have you just eaten him? Kills it. Of course, another favourite is when they say, I'm going to take you out. Great. Pizza? Indian?
My name's Mr. Humes, that's Hulemes. I do a lot of supply teaching. Normally, when I go into school, I'll put my name up on the board, Mr. Humes, and then children, being what they are, will just take the mick and say, sir, Mr. Fumes. So once I got sick of it, so I thought, well, I'll just put a different name up on the board. So the next time I went into a classroom, I then put my name up, Mr. Hughes, instead. And then all the kids were there going, sir, Mr. Huge. And I'm quite a skinny bloke, right? So I have to stand there in front of a bunch of children going, I am not huge.
Now, despite the property price crash, teachers still find it difficult to get the 4 walls they deserve, which is why location is so important.
I actually moved up to London, the big smoke where it's all going off, right? Teaching drama there, not bad at all. The kids know exactly how to freeze, freeze! It's great, yeah. It's helped me a lot, I used to watch a lot of those crime shows. I don't have to do that anymore. I mean, CSI, crime scene investigation, that's pretty much my neighborhood. And you know how you have that whole adage of, live every day as though it's your last? That's a real reality for me. I don't know if I'm gonna survive.
I was marking a paper at school, a physics paper, and the question was, name 3 uses for microwaves. And the kid wrote down, heating up pies, heating up pasties, and heating up sausage rolls. Well, that's Wigan for you.
I have some Irish blood in me. And in fact, when I'm in Ireland, people always say to me, sure, with a name like Ryan, you must be Irish. Well, what I always say to them is I'm sort of English with Irish connections. But on one particular occasion, I was at a festival and I'd had a few drinks. And I said to this bloke, well, I'm sort of half Irish and whole English. He said, sir, that's interesting. So he said, when you're talking to me now, sir, are you talking through your half or are you talking through your whole?
As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm a southerner living in the north. There are a lot of differences because of the north-south divide. For example, up here we have chip and pin, but down south it's called julienne potatoes and pinot grigio. Up here we have Yorkshire caviar, which southerners innocently believe is called mushy peas.
So it's the Garden of Eden, and you've got Adam, and he's... God, I'm bored. I mean, this place is lovely. Animals are great. The food's fantastic. I mean, the scenery is incredible. I'm like, I'm really chilled out. It's really lovely here, but I'm bored. I've got nobody to talk to. I want to say stuff, and you're up there, but you're not always listening and stuff. I need someone to talk to. God's like, okay. What I'll do for you is I'll get you someone. They'll be gorgeous. You'll be completely attracted to them. They'll be of the opposite sex. Sex will be fantastic. She wants to do everything for you. She'll clean for you. She'll cook for you. She'll give you massages. She'll listen to all your problems, and she'll make sure that, your life is great and everything. And Adam's like, that sounds fantastic, God. That's, yeah, brilliant. What's it going to cost me? And God says, it'll cost you an arm and a leg. And Adam goes, what can I get for a rib?
It's really hard being a Brummie, because everybody thinks we're thick. I want to prove that wrong, but I can't. We had a local TV station that showed a woman who accidentally fed her tortoise dog meat. Oh, I didn't know tortoises like meat. Of course they like it, they just can't bloody catch it. It's not the most obvious predator, is it? You have David Attenborough in your garden and the deadly tortoise is stalking the gazelle. I think it is a predator, it's just that little bit lazy. Oh, that looks tasty. Oh, sod, it'll have cabbage. Or I could sit here and outlive you. But my favourite animal fact, right, ants, when intoxicated, always fall on their right-hand side. Obviously a quiet day in the lab when they discovered that. Cure for cancer? Nah, go and put some lager in a pipette. I said that in Yorkshire, and this bloke went, "Here, that's not true, that." No, because my aunt gets pissed every Christmas, she falls on her back.
The world-renowned detective, Charlie Chang, and his #1 son took time off, went on holiday, went on camping. Yeah, in the evening, they made camp, cooked their dinner, had a bottle of sake each, fell asleep happily. 2 hours later, Charlie Chang woke up, nudged his #1 son, and said, "Wake up, wake up!" #1 son said, "What's troubling you, father? Look up. What do you see?" It's a lovely night. It's got, I can see trees, I can see the moon, I can see stars. #1 son, what does that tell you? Well, father, it tells me it's going to be a very peaceful, calm night. You stupid idiot, #1 son. Someone has stolen our tent.
Sadly, that's our only father-son Chinese camping joke in the whole programme. But what about dads and Doctor Who?
I remember being forced to watch it by my father years ago, and my dad, when they say that everyone hides behind the settee watching Doctor Who, my dad was the scariest thing in the room easily, and we used to stand in front of the settee, try and get rid of him. These things used to come on the telly, and we'd all go, "Ah!" And the thing was, I think he was just disturbed by the fact that we found it so scary, and he would just stand there going, "It's not scary. It's a man in a suit. It's a man in a suit. It's a man in a suit." And whack us like this. It's the only place to get away from was at the front of the room. And for years and years, he used to take us to things like the Blackpool Doctor Who show. There's this Cyberman, it was, stepped out of the frame, which means made everybody within about a 10-yard radius scream their heads off, except my father, and he just whacked him. "It's a man in a suit!" Gave this guy a big knock back into the frame, and they employed my dad for the rest of the summer, I think, as the scariest thing in Doctor Who. Years later, I actually got the chance to go in a Dalek. I was working for the Puffin Book Club, which is this organisation that basically promotes Puffin books to halls full of overexcited middle-class children. For some reason, they had a Doctor Who stole. I don't know why, because it'd been off for a while then. None of the kids knew what it was. But I didn't care. They had a few videos, and they had a real Dalek, which is fantastic, because, years and years I wanted to be a man in a suit. If you took the top off, you could be lowered in, and then they would bolt the top back on, so once you're inside, you were stuck. And it's quite nice, because there's little fiddly things and a plunger arm to move around, but no voice thing. So you couldn't do the loud exterminate business. And the kids weren't scared of it at all. They'd never seen one. The kids would just come up to it and go, "Wow, some sort of droid," and would whack the plunger backwards and forwards inside. And inside, there's this metal rod with a sharp end that would thud gently about an inch away from your heart. And all you could say was, "Please don't do that to these." And then they would realise that there was someone inside. And they pushed me nearer and nearer to these stairs. And all I could do is try and dig my toes in to stop this bloody thing moving along, going, "Help! Help!" very quietly through this muffled gauze thing that you get to see out. But luckily I was saved by a very large woman called Brown Owl, who I'm forever grateful to.
And from knockabout science fiction to science fact, apparently.
There's a Professor Stuart Campbell who is an ultrasound pioneer. It's true this, he took a picture of a 12-week-old unborn baby. It's jumping up and down off the womb like a trampoline. And after 14 weeks, he said that the fetus, it stood up, had a stretch and sat down again. So I thought, what's a 16-week-old baby going to do? He's going to order a pizza and watch a video. A Womb with a View, maybe. Or On Her Majesty's Secret Cervix. Fetal Attraction, maybe. That was a violent film. I don't like violent films. So I've launched this one-man campaign. I'm in touch with Hollywood. And they've been remaking some of these violent films into sort of gentler forms, more palatable. So they've made Conan the Librarian, that kind of thing. The Texas Chainsaw Manicure. Do you want any more? Yes, please, Steve. Okay, Reservoir Puppies. And blesses you, the polish.
At the hospital the other day, I was at the hospital and I saw a sign which said, "For family planning, please use rear entrance."
Have you ever seen Casualty, when they set the kind of the plot up? First scene, I don't know, man roller skating down some stairs covered in butter whilst juggling hedgehogs, you know. Second scene, small child running towards a brick wall with knives pointing towards his eyes. Third scene, girl smoking a cigarette in a petrol station whilst covered in fuel. On ITV, they're no better. They've got this tendency to have programmes like, I don't know, Rosemary Smith and Janet Time are two gardeners who both solve crime in their spare time. Please join them for Rosemary and Time. So I thought, well, OK, ITV, if that's the way that programmes are going, I've got some ideas of my own. Margaret up and Jane down are two clinically depressed, hot air balloonists who solve crime in their spare time. Please join them for Up and Down.
Up and down. You see what he did there? I wish someone would have a go at maths and technology, though.
Hi, I've just had my whiteboard fitted with the overhead projector. They're great. They make teaching a lot easier. You have to practice to get the best out of them, though. I mean, already I can do a rabbit and a dog. Now I'm working on a good shadow for a compound sentence.
Now, we're all here for teaching reasons. In my case, I used to be a maths teacher, so do forgive me if I go off at a tangent. I'm sure you'll give me a sign. Thank you.
They emailed me their homework now. The dog ate it is no longer a viable excuse. Sorry, sir, it was intercepted by the school's antivirus software is what I usually get. Next, they'll be having the direct data ports, like in sci-fi movies, on the back of their neck. Now, why is it always on the back of the neck? I can't think of a less convenient place for it to go. I mean, chest, fine. My kids think I should have mine in the middle of my forehead, because I saw them pointing at me and showing me how to plug it in, I think.
The enumerate tendency. Under this heading, we found mistakes such as the belief that a square root is always carried out in the missionary position, that your tables are what you eat your dinners off, that a rectangle is one that has been vandalised, and that a polygon is a dead parrot. Other common mistakes include the notion that parallel lines make you look older, that the hypotenuse is to be found in African swamps, and that 2 and 2 can be anything you want it to be. A student there with a great future in accountancy.
The children have all converted themselves into pink and green flashing lights surfing the web. There's nobody left in the classroom, just me and the hamster. And the hamster's wearing a virtual reality helmet, so it can imagine itself running through a clear plastic ball. And there's me, trying to do a shadow of a man with a pipe.
Now that's the sort of amazing skill that could impress a fellow teacher on a first date.
I am single, most teachers are, that's the rule. And I think maybe, because most people meet people through work. There's no way that I want to go out with another primary school teacher. I mean, think of the cagoules rubbing together. It'd light up a small town. Mind you, I did try speed dating. It was parents' evening.
Parents, whether you're dating them or not, rarely understand the effort involved in maintaining an orderly classroom.
To see that still right at the top of the political agenda is dealing with disruptive students in classes. Dead important. I'm not sure if you looked at this, but the expert advice seems to be that where you've got naughty students, you want to be putting their name on the board, and that'll sort it for you. Now, I cut my tooth teaching in places like Manchester, Liverpool, and the cities, and somehow the situation is saying, Daz, Baz, and Shaz, for the last time, put your pens down, or your name's on the board. Oh no, teacher, whatever you do, don't put my name on the board. That's right, and if you do it again, I'll put a tick next to it. Now, I don't want to be cynical, but I didn't even find that it worked when I was teaching in Africa. I was in a little village called Botshabelo, first week, trying to set a good impression. Said to a lad, that was your final warning. Your name's going on the board. What's your name? Talo Ganyangwa Kwalechi. OK, son. Maybe I won't put your name on the board, but next time, you're in trouble.
Our final category are those mistakes we have filed under examinations. Rather unusually, we found that many students were confused about the exams they might be entered for. One thought that he might be a sitter in gills, one that a B.Tech was a kind of Aztec, another that oral assessments really suck, and a fourth that a bachelor's degree is one you need to take before you can get your married man's allowance. The work of the inquiry continues. We are not depressed about the state of teaching and learning, rather the opposite. The howler is thriving in our schools. It is an aspect of British education of which we can all be proud.
Teaching is a tough job these days. I mean, the place where I work is so tough, we've actually had to get a security guard in. I was talking to this guy the other day. I said, what do you actually do then? He said, well, I do all sorts of things. He said, but one of the things I have to do is watch the toilets. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, I have to check what they're up to in the cubicles. I mean, I go in one day to somebody shooting up heroin, go in another day to somebody snorting cocaine, go in another day to somebody sniffing glue. He said, I'll tell you what, if I go in there and find somebody having a shit, it's like a breath of fresh air. I thank you.
Our final fragrant offering deserves his own special section. Before laying down his life for teaching, this noble soul wrote gags for Ken Dodd, but they were tame offerings compared to his deeply strange and wonderful character, Mr. Roy Fisk. Farewell and enjoy.
Hi there, Roy Fisk here, and I'm going to tell you about the wonderful world of obscurism. Well, Roy, you're going to ask me, what is obscurism? Well, of course, obscurism is people who actually enjoy being obscured by things. Journey with me now into times gone by. Bournemouth, 1955. Myself and my father walking along the promenade, him with his box brownie, me hand in hand. And I remember the moment vividly. He turned to me and he said, Roy, take my photograph. I'm sorry, I'm just filling up here. Oh, dear me. So where was I? Oh, yes. It was a rite of passage moment. So I held the box brownie as steady as I could and I took the photograph. And when it came back from the chemist's, this was the photograph that I took. Now, Roy, you're going to say to me, your father was a lamppost. You couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, this is a photograph of my father being obscured by a lamppost. And it wasn't until it came back from the chemist that we as a family realised our father had been a closet obscurist for most of his adult life. He enjoyed being obscured by boxes, people, and later on, out-of-date farmyard machinery. We just never knew. We never knew. And here's another photograph. And I know what you're going to say again. Surely, Roy, isn't that Enrico Farquharson when he was winning the 1957 London Marathon? And I'm going to say, well, it is in a way. But actually, this is a photograph of Enrico obscuring my father. But this, unfortunately, was the last photograph that was ever taken of our father. Coming back from that London Marathon, he decided that being an obscurist, he was very vulnerable. Because he went to work on his bike every day, he decided to paint it white. He painted the wheels white, the frame white, he painted the handlebars, he bought himself a white suit and a white hat and white trousers. He even invested in some white makeup. And the man who drove the snowplow said he didn't see him at all. And he was gone. So, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Obscurists are everywhere. I'm an obscurist, and so is my friend Malcolm. There are millions of obscurists throughout the world. There may be somebody watching now that's an obscurist. Stand up, stand proud, and whatever you do, stand behind something.